Amanda stood in my living room, her smile as cold as December frost, while the notary shuffled papers like he was dealing cards for my funeral. I smiled back and said, "Perfect timing, but let's make a quick stop at the police station first. They've been waiting to hear about those documents I sent them yesterday." The color drained from her face faster than water down a broken drain. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. You're probably wondering how I got here, standing face to face with the daughter-in-law who thought she'd outsmarted a 68-year-old woman. Well, buckle up because this story starts with the most humiliating 24 hours of my life and ends with the most satisfying. 2 days earlier, I'd watched my only son, Liam, marry Evelyn Carter in the same church where I'd married his father 35 years ago. The ceremony was beautiful. Evelyn looked radiant, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we could finally build a real relationship. After all, she was carrying my future grandchild. How naive can one woman be? The reception was at the country club, the same one where I'd worked as a waitress to put Liam through college. I'd scraped together $15,000 for their wedding, money I'd saved from my Social Security checks, eating generic cereal, and walking to the grocery store to save on gas. "Rebecca's been such a help," Evelyn announced to a table full of her friends, her voice dripping with the kind of sweetness that makes your teeth ache. "She's been living with us for months, helping with the down payment on our house. Such a generous mother-in-law." The women at the table smiled politely, but I caught the glances they exchanged. I knew what they were thinking. Poor old woman probably can't manage on her own anymore. What Evelyn didn't mention was how that help had happened. 3 months ago, she'd convinced Liam that my little apartment wasn't safe for an elderly woman living alone. "What if you fall?" she'd said, tears in her eyes. "What if something happens and no one knows for hours?" Before I knew it, they'd moved me out of my apartment and into their spare room temporarily, while we looked for something better suited to my needs. Meanwhile, the $15,000 I'd given them for their house down payment had mysteriously become a loan that would be paid back when things settle down. Things never settle down when someone's busy spending your money. "She's practically family," Evelyn continued, and the way she said practically made my chest tighten as if after 5 years of dating Liam and 9 months of marriage planning, I was still auditioning for acceptance. But the real humiliation came during the speeches. Liam stood up, champagne glass in hand, beaming at his new bride. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible," he began. "My beautiful wife, our families, and of course my mother, who's always been there when we needed her." Polite applause. Normal so far. Then Evelyn rose, elegant in her wedding dress, and the room went quiet. "I also want to say something about Rebecca," she said, her smile so bright it could have powered the chandeliers. "She's been living with us for months now, and I've learned so much about family loyalty from her." My heart swelled. Maybe I'd been wrong about Evelyn. She's taught me that real mothers never stop taking care of their children, no matter how old they get. Some mothers, when their sons get married, they step back and let the wife take over. But not Rebecca. The applause was uncertain now. People weren't sure if they were supposed to clap or not. Evelyn wasn't finished. "Rebecca's even helping us financially because that's what mothers do. They sacrifice everything for their children's happiness. It's really quite inspiring to see someone so selfless." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt every eye in the room on me, and I understood with crystal clarity what had just happened. Evelyn had publicly branded me as a dependent, someone who couldn't let go, someone who was still financially supporting her grown son. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came the next morning when I woke up to find Evelyn and a man in a suit sitting at my kitchen table. Well, their kitchen table, as Evelyn had started calling it. "Rebecca," Evelyn said brightly, as if nothing had changed overnight. "This is Mr. Jenkins from Capital Legal Services. We need to discuss some paperwork." I poured myself coffee with hands that only trembled slightly. After 42 years of motherhood, I'd learned to recognize ambush tactics. "What kind of paperwork?" Evelyn exchanged a glance with the notary. "Well, Liam and I have been talking, and we think it's time to make some changes. You've been so generous with the house down payment, and we want to make sure you're properly taken care of as you get older." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. What does that mean exactly? Mr. Jenkins cleared his throat. Mrs. Harris, your son and daughter-in-law have arranged for you to move into Oakwood Manor. It's a lovely assisted living facility with 24-hour care. They've already put down a deposit. My coffee mug hit the table harder than I intended. Without asking me. We wanted it to be a surprise, Evelyn said, her voice gentle, but her eyes hard as flint. Liam's been so worried about you living independently, and frankly, Rebecca, you've seemed a bit forgetful lately. Forgetful. The word hit me like a slap. I was 68, not 98, and my mind was sharper than most people half my age. But Evelyn had been building this narrative for weeks. Hadn't she little comments about me misplacing things? Gentle corrections when I remembered events differently than she did. I've also been forgetful, I said carefully. Or are you hoping I won't remember that the house we're sitting in has my name on the deed alongside Liam's? Evelyn's smile never wavered, but something shifted behind her eyes. Actually, Rebecca, that's part of what we need to discuss. Liam and I have decided to refinance, and it would be simpler if the property was solely in our names. Cleaner paperwork. You understand? And my $15,000 down payment. Consider it a wedding gift, Evelyn said sweetly. After all, you want your son to be happy, don't you? The notary was getting uncomfortable. I could see him checking his watch, probably wondering how much longer this family drama would take. He had no idea he was witnessing highway robbery in broad daylight. Where's Liam? I asked. Shouldn't he be here for this conversation? He's at the gym, Evelyn replied without missing a beat. He found all this financial talk stressful, so he thought it would be better if I handled it. You understand newlywed stress and all? Of course, Liam had always avoided confrontation, especially when it came to money. When he was 12 and wanted a bike, he'd sent me a letter instead of asking face to face. When he'd crashed his car at 17, he'd had his girlfriend call me with the news. And now, at 42, he was still sending intermediaries to do his dirty work. Mrs. Harris, the notary said gently, I do need to inform you that according to these documents, you'd be signing away all claim to the property in exchange for having your assisted living costs covered for the first year. 1 year, they were buying me out of my own investment for 1 year of nursing home care. And after that year, I asked. Evelyn shrugged delicately. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Maybe you'll have adjusted by then. Maybe you'll like it so much you won't want to leave. The audacity was breathtaking. They'd planned this entire scenario, the wedding, the touching speech about family loyalty, moving me into their house to establish dependence. And now the final act of stripping away my assets and independence in one fell swoop. But here's the thing about underestimating someone. It only works if they don't see it coming. I need some time to think about this, I said, standing up from the table. Evelyn's mask slipped for just a moment. Rebecca, Mr. Jenkins has other appointments today. It would be much more convenient if we could just handle this now. I'm sure it would be, I replied. But I'm not signing anything today. The notary looked relieved. Of course, Mrs. Harris, take all the time you need. These are big decisions. After they left, I sat alone in the living room I'd helped furnish, looking at the walls I'd helped paint, in the house I'd helped buy. Evelyn had made one crucial mistake in her master plan. She'd forgotten that I'd been Liam's mother for 42 years, which meant I'd been dealing with his schemes and evasions since before she was born. And I'd learned a few things about playing the long game. That afternoon, while Evelyn was out getting her post-wedding manicure touched up, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went through my own paperwork. The documents I'd kept in the fireproof box that Evelyn had insisted we store somewhere safe in their bedroom closet. Funny how somewhere safe really meant somewhere Rebecca can't get to without asking permission first. I found exactly what I was looking for. The original deed to the house showing both Liam's name and mine. The canceled check for $15,000 clearly marked down payment. And most importantly, the power of attorney documents that Liam had asked me to sign 6 months ago. Evelyn had presented those papers as a precaution, just in case something happens to you. Rebecca, Liam could help manage your affairs without having to go through the courts. It's really quite common for people your age. I'd read every word of those documents 3 times before signing them. What Evelyn didn't know was that I'd also had my lawyer add a very specific clause. One that made the power of attorney conditional on my mental competency as determined by 2 independent physicians. In other words, if I was sharp enough to handle my own affairs, the power of attorney was void. And despite what Evelyn wanted everyone to believe, I was plenty sharp. My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. "Sorry I missed the meeting this morning. How did it go with the paperwork?" I stared at that message for a long time. My son, asking about signing away my rights and assets via text message, as if I was a business transaction he could delegate to his wife. I typed back, "We'll need to discuss it when you get home." The response came immediately. "Actually, I'm staying at Tom's tonight. Wedding recovery. You know how it is. Evelyn can catch me up tomorrow." Wedding recovery. He'd been married less than 48 hours, and he was already avoiding coming home. Or maybe he was avoiding facing what they'd tried to do to me. That evening, Evelyn ordered Chinese takeout, and we ate in relative silence. She seemed confident that I'd come around, that the pressure of time and her patient manipulation would eventually wear me down. "Rebecca," she said as we cleared the plates, "I hope you know that everything we're doing is because we love you. Liam worries constantly about your safety, your future. This arrangement would give him such peace of mind." "I'm sure it would," I replied. "Oakwood Manor really is lovely. They have activities, social hours, even a library. You'd make new friends, have people your own age to talk to." People my own age, as if I'd somehow become incompatible with the rest of the world by virtue of having lived through the Carter administration. "Have you visited this place?" I asked. "Of course. Liam and I toured it last month. The staff is wonderful, and the rooms are quite spacious, much more appropriate for someone with your needs." My needs? There was that phrase again, as if being 68 automatically created a list of special requirements that only Evelyn could identify. "What exactly are my needs?" "Evelyn." She looked surprised by the question. "Well, senior needs, medical supervision, social interaction with peers, structured activities, the kind of support that becomes necessary as we age." I nodded thoughtfully. "And you've determined that I need these things because—" "Rebecca, you're almost 70. Living independently becomes more challenging at your age. We're just being proactive. Almost 70. I was 68 in 3 months, but Evelyn had been rounding up for weeks now, adding months and years to my age, like she was fast-forwarding me toward incompetence. "I see," I said. "And when did you and Liam decide that I was no longer capable of making my own decisions?" Evelyn's patience was starting to fray around the edges. "We're not saying you're incapable, Rebecca. We're saying it's time to be realistic about your limitations." Limitations that, coincidentally, included the limitation of owning property they wanted to control. That night I lay awake in the spare bedroom that had once been my temporary solution and was now apparently my last night of freedom. Evelyn had made it clear that the Oakwood Manor arrangement would happen with or without my cooperation. They'd use the power of attorney, claim I was becoming forgetful and unsafe. But Evelyn had made her second crucial mistake. She'd assumed that a woman who'd raised a son alone, who'd worked double shifts and night jobs, who'd survived the death of a husband and built a life from nothing, would be easy to manipulate. Tuesday morning, I got up early and made my famous blueberry pancakes, the same recipe I'd been making for Liam since he was 5 years old, back when he'd sit at our tiny kitchen table in our tiny apartment and tell me about his dreams of having a big house someday. I'd wanted to help him achieve that dream. I'd never imagined he'd use it to cage me. "These smell wonderful," Evelyn said, appearing in the kitchen in her silk pajamas, perfectly coordinated, even first thing in the morning. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion, just felt like cooking." She sat down and accepted a plate, cutting her pancakes into neat, precise bites. "I hope you've had time to think about our conversation yesterday. Rebecca, Mr. Jenkins called. He can come back this afternoon if you're ready to move forward." "I've definitely been thinking," I said, sitting down across from her with my own plate. "Good. I know it's hard to let go of independence, but sometimes the people who love us have to make difficult decisions on our behalf." I took a bite of pancake, savoring the burst of blueberries. "Can I ask you something, Evelyn?" "Of course. What made you decide that I needed assisted living?" She looked puzzled. "Well, as I said, your age, Your safety? No, I mean specifically, what incident made you think I wasn't safe living independently? Evelyn paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. It's not about one incident, Rebecca. It's about overall vulnerability. But there must have been something that triggered this concern. A fall confusion, forgetting to turn off the stove. Not exactly, but wandering outside at night, getting lost, having trouble managing medications. Rebecca, it's not about waiting for something terrible to happen. It's about being proactive. I nodded slowly. So you can't point to a single instance where I've demonstrated the kind of cognitive or physical decline that would warrant assisted living. Evelyn was getting flustered. The overall picture of a woman who manages her own finances, maintains her own health, drives safely, cooks meals, and engages in normal social activities. You've been living with us for months because you convinced me my apartment wasn't safe, but I've been taking care of myself in that apartment for 12 years without incident. Evelyn set down her fork, her pleasant morning demeanor cracking. Rebecca, I don't understand why you're making this so difficult. We're trying to help you. Are you? I asked quietly. Or are you trying to help yourselves to my assets? The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator humming in the corner. How dare you? Evelyn whispered, her face flushing red. How dare you accuse us of theft? I'm not accusing anyone of theft. I'm asking a legitimate question. If this arrangement is truly about my well-being, why does it coincidentally result in you gaining full ownership of a property I helped purchase? Evelyn stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. You're being paranoid and hurtful. Am I? Then let's modify the arrangement. I'll consider assisted living, but the house stays in both names, mine and Liam's. That way you get the peace of mind about my safety, but I maintain my financial security. That's not... The paperwork is already drawn up. Paperwork can be changed. Evelyn stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something ugly flicker across her face. Something calculating and cold that made my skin crawl. You know what your problem is, Rebecca, she said finally. You can't let go. You can't accept that Liam has a wife now, a family of his own. You want to keep controlling his life, keeping him dependent on you financially and emotionally. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not true. Isn't it? You moved in here. You inserted yourself into our marriage. You make him feel guilty every time he tries to build a life separate from you. This isn't about the house, Rebecca. This is about you refusing to accept that your role in Liam's life has changed. I felt tears sting my eyes because there was just enough truth in what she said to hurt. I had been struggling with Liam's marriage, with feeling displaced and less important, but that didn't mean I deserved to be stripped of my independence and assets. Even if that were true, I said, my voice steady despite the pain in my chest, it wouldn't justify deception and financial exploitation. Evelyn laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Financial exploitation. You gave us that money freely, Rebecca. You moved in here by choice. Nobody forced you to do anything. After you systematically undermined my confidence in my ability to live independently, I what in? The comments about my forgetfulness, the suggestions about my safety, the gradual erosion of my autonomy. You've been setting this up for months, haven't you? Evelyn's face went very still. For just a moment, her mask slipped completely, and I saw the cold calculation underneath. That's when I knew for certain that this wasn't about my well-being at all. You're being ridiculous, Evelyn said, but her voice had lost its honeyed sweetness. Now she sounded like what she really was, a woman whose carefully laid plans were being questioned by someone she'd underestimated. I stood up and walked to the kitchen drawer where I'd been keeping my important papers. Let's talk about timing. Evelyn. I pulled out a small notebook where I'd been tracking something very specific over the past 3 months. March 15th, I read aloud. You mentioned that I'd left the stove on after making breakfast, except I'd made toast in the toaster, not used the stove at all. Evelyn's face was expressionless, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. March 22nd, you told Liam I'd forgotten our dinner plans and made other arrangements, except we never had dinner plans. You'd canceled on me that morning. I flipped the page. April 3rd, You suggested I was having trouble following conversations because I'd asked you to repeat something. What I'd actually asked was for you to speak louder because you were whispering. Rebecca, I don't know what you think you're proving. April 18th, you mentioned to the neighbor that I'd gotten confused about what day it was. I'd asked if it was Tuesday or Wednesday because I'd lost track during my recovery from the flu, which you failed to mention to her. I could see Evelyn calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I could prove. You've been building a case against my mental competency for months, I continued. Every minor mistake, every normal senior moment, every instance of being tired or sick, you've been cataloging it all and presenting it as evidence of decline. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then why did you tell the wedding planner that I was getting confused about details when I simply disagreed with your choice of flowers? Evelyn was quiet now, her jaw clenched. And why? I continued. Did you tell Liam that I was becoming fixated on money matters when I asked reasonable questions about how my $15,000 was being spent? Because you were being inappropriate. Inappropriate how? By wanting to know what happened to my own money. Evelyn exploded. It's not your money anymore. Rebecca, you gave it to us. You can't give someone a gift and then spend the rest of your life questioning how they use it. A gift? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. When exactly did my contribution to your down payment become a gift? Because I have the original paperwork right here, and it's very clearly documented as a loan. I pulled out the folder I'd retrieved from their bedroom closet, the one Evelyn thought was safely locked away from my forgetful old fingers. A loan that you and Liam agreed to repay within 2 years, with my name remaining on the deed as security until repayment was complete. Evelyn went very pale. You weren't supposed to. Liam said he'd explained. Liam said a lot of things, but what matters is what's written down, isn't it? I spread the documents on the kitchen table like a winning poker hand. Loan agreement, deed with both names, power of attorney with mental competency clause, and my personal favorite, the email from Evelyn to Liam from 2 months ago. Evelyn's eyes went wide. What email? The one where you wrote, and I quote, "We need to move faster on the Rebecca situation. She's asking too many questions about the money, and I'm worried she's going to cause problems with the refinancing." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. You went through my private messages. You went through my private life and systematically dismantled it. I'd say we're even. Evelyn sat down heavily, her perfect composure finally cracking. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Rebecca, the mortgage payments, the wedding expenses, the baby coming. You needed my money and my property, but not me. That's not true. Is it because your plan was pretty clear? Get me to sign away my assets, park me in assisted living, and have power of attorney to make sure I can't cause any more trouble. How long before you'd have convinced Liam I was too senile to manage visits? How long before I became that sad old woman whose family never comes to see her? Evelyn was crying now, tears streaming down her perfect face. We weren't trying to hurt you. We needed options. The baby, our future. We needed security. At the cost of my security. You're old, Rebecca. You don't need security the way we do. You don't have decades of life ahead of you. Children to raise, careers to build. We have expenses you can't understand. And there it was, the ugly truth underneath all the manipulation and gaslighting. In Evelyn's mind, my remaining years were worth less than their future plans. My needs were negotiable because I didn't have as much time left to need things. You're right, I said quietly. I am getting older. I probably don't have decades left. Evelyn looked hopeful for the first time that morning. Which is exactly why, I continued, I'm not going to spend whatever time I have left being manipulated and controlled by someone who sees me as disposable. The hope disappeared from her face. I'm not signing your papers, Evelyn, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And if you and Liam want me out of this house, you're going to have to follow legal procedures, which means proving I'm actually incompetent, not just inconvenient. That's when Evelyn made her third and most crucial mistake. She decided to get mean. You selfish, bitter old woman, Evelyn hissed, all pretense of caring daughter-in-law evaporating like morning mist. Do you have any idea what you're doing to Liam? To our marriage? I'd been waiting for this moment. The moment when her mask would slip completely and show me who she really was underneath all that practiced sweetness. Enlighten me, I said calmly. You're destroying his happiness. He's torn between his wife and his mother. And you're making him choose. What kind of mother does that to her own son? The kind who taught him that love doesn't come with price tags. Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. Love you call this love? You're emotionally blackmailing him, making him feel guilty for having his own life. You've been doing it his whole life, haven't you? I felt something cold settle in my chest. What do you mean Liam told me everything, Rebecca, about how you guilt-tripped him into staying local for college instead of going to Stanford? How you had mysterious health scares every time he tried to date seriously? How you made him feel responsible for your loneliness after his father died? Each word was designed to cut deep, and they did, because like all effective lies, they contained threads of truth twisted into ugly shapes. I supported his college choice, I said quietly. After you cried about how you'd be all alone, how you'd worked so hard to put him through school. And wouldn't it be nice if he stayed close enough to visit regularly? Had I said those things? Maybe I'd been lonely, scared about facing empty nest syndrome and widowhood simultaneously, but I'd never tried to control his choices. And the health scares, Evelyn continued, sensing weakness. The chest pains when he started getting serious with Jennifer in college. The dizzy spells when he was planning to move to Chicago with Sarah. My mouth went dry. Those health issues had been real. Stress-induced, but real. The doctor had confirmed it. But the timing. You've been manipulating him for years, Rebecca, making yourself the center of his world by playing the victim. And now you're doing it again. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're making him choose between his mother and his pregnant wife. You're forcing him to pick between your comfort and his family's future. What kind of person does that? The accusations hit like physical blows because there was enough truth in them to sting. Had I been too dependent on Liam over the years? Had I unconsciously guilt-tripped him into staying close? But even if I had, it didn't justify what they were doing now. Even if everything you just said is true, I managed, it doesn't give you the right to defraud me. Defraud? Evelyn's voice rose to a near shriek. We're trying to take care of you. We're trying to make sure you have a safe place to live and medical care when you need it. By stealing my assets and warehousing me in a facility I never chose. By making sure you don't end up alone and helpless with no one to look after you. I'd rather be alone than be with people who see me as a burden to be managed. That's when Evelyn showed me exactly how much she'd been holding back. Fine, she said, her voice deadly calm. You want to play hardball? Rebecca, let's play hardball. You have 24 hours to reconsider your position. Or what? Or I tell Liam about the pills. My blood turned to ice water. What pills? Evelyn smiled, and it was the most frightening expression I'd ever seen on a human face. The Xanax I found in your purse. The prescription that isn't yours. The medication you've been hiding from us. I stared at her, understanding dawning like a slow sunrise. Those were Sarah Washington's pills. She asked me to pick up her prescription because she couldn't get off work. I was dropping them off to her this afternoon. Can you prove that, Sarah can confirm. Sarah Washington, who moved to Phoenix last month. That Sarah Washington. The room spun slightly. Sarah had moved. Yes, but she'd asked me to pick up her prescription as a favor before she left. To save her a trip to the pharmacy. The pills were still in my purse because I'd forgotten to give them to her before she moved. You're going to claim I'm abusing prescription medication that isn't mine. I'm going to express concern about your judgment and your potential addiction issues, combined with your recent paranoid accusations about financial exploitation, your documented confusion and memory problems, and your increasingly erratic behavior. She let the threat hang in the air between us. Liam will have no choice but to pursue legal guardianship for your own protection. I sat down heavily, the full scope of her manipulation finally becoming clear. She hadn't just been building a case for assisted living. She'd been building a case for complete legal control over my life. You planned this, I whispered. I planned for contingencies, Evelyn replied coolly. I hoped you'd be reasonable, but I prepared for the possibility that you'd be difficult. Liam would never. Liam will do whatever it takes to protect his family, and I'm his family now. Rebecca, you're just the woman who raised him. The cruelty in that statement took my breath away. Now, Evelyn continued, checking her watch, Mr. Jenkins will be here at 2:00. You can sign the papers voluntarily and move to Oakwood Manor with dignity, or you can fight it and find yourself declared incompetent by a court. She started to leave the kitchen, then paused at the doorway. Oh, and Rebecca, if you even think about trying to tell Liam your version of this conversation, remember that you're a confused old woman with a drug problem and paranoid delusions. Who do you think he's going to believe? His pregnant wife or his increasingly unstable mother? After she left, I sat alone in the kitchen where I'd made breakfast that morning like it was any other day. But everything had changed. Evelyn had shown me exactly how trapped I was, how completely she'd planned my destruction. But Evelyn had made one final mistake. She'd forgotten that I'd had 42 years to learn about my son's personality, his patterns, his weaknesses. And I'd had 42 years to learn about patience, planning, and the art of the long game. At exactly 1:45 p.m., Mr. Jenkins arrived with his briefcase and his official papers. At exactly 1:46 p.m., Evelyn discovered that some games are won before they even begin. Mrs. Harris, Mr. Jenkins said, settling into his chair with professional efficiency. I understand you'd like to proceed with the assisted living arrangements today. I smiled at him the same way I'd been smiling at people who underestimated me for 68 years. Actually, Mr. Jenkins, I'd like to discuss something else entirely. Evelyn froze halfway through pouring him coffee. Rebecca, we agreed. We didn't agree to anything, Evelyn, but I did spend some time this morning making phone calls. I reached into my purse, the same purse where Evelyn thought she'd found evidence of prescription drug abuse, and pulled out a manila folder. Mr. Jenkins, are you familiar with elder abuse laws in this state? The notary shifted uncomfortably. I know, that's not really my area of expertise. Mrs. Harris? Well, let me educate you. Financial exploitation of elderly persons is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison and full restitution of damages. Evelyn's coffee cup rattled against its saucer. Rebecca, what are you talking about? I'm talking about systematic fraud. Evelyn, I'm talking about a carefully orchestrated scheme to separate me from my assets and independence through psychological manipulation and false documentation. I opened the folder and spread its contents across the table like a hand of cards I'd been saving for exactly this moment. Mr. Jenkins, I'd like you to see the original loan agreement for the house down payment, the one that clearly states this was money to be repaid, not a gift. I'd also like you to see the deed showing joint ownership, which my daughter-in-law has been trying to get me to sign away under false pretenses. The notary examined the documents, his professional demeanor becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Mrs. Harris, these appear to be legitimate financial instruments. They are. And here's the email trail between Evelyn and Liam discussing how to handle the Rebecca situation before I became a problem for their refinancing plans. Evelyn went white. How did you get access to our private communications? The same way you've been accessing my medical information, my financial records, and my personal belongings without permission. The difference is, what I did was legal. I pulled out another document. This is a report from Dr. Ethan Moore, my physician for the past 12 years, confirming that I show no signs of cognitive decline, dementia, or any condition that would impair my decision-making capacity. When did you, Evelyn, started? Yesterday afternoon, while you thought I was taking a nap. I also had an interesting conversation with Detective Gabriela Rodriguez from the Elder Abuse Division of the Sheriff's Department. Mr. Jenkins was packing up his briefcase. Mrs. Harris, I think perhaps I should leave you to handle this family matter privately. Oh, but Mr. Jenkins, you're already involved. You see, knowingly participating in the financial exploitation of an elderly person makes you an accessory to a felony. The man went pale. I was told this was a voluntary arrangement. By whom did you speak with me directly about my wishes? Or did you take Evelyn's word that I wanted to sign away my property rights? Mrs. Evelyn Harris contacted our office and explained that you needed assistance with legal documents due to cognitive issues. Cognitive issues that she documented how exactly. Evelyn finally found her voice. Rebecca, You're blowing this completely out of proportion. We were trying to help. Help yourselves. You mean? I turned back to Mr. Jenkins. Sir, I'm 68 years old, in excellent health, and fully competent to manage my own affairs. No one has the right to make legal decisions for me without my explicit consent, regardless of what my daughter-in-law has told you about my supposed limitations. The notary was edging toward the door. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'll need to consult with my supervisor about how to proceed. You do that, I said cheerfully. And while you're at it, you might want to check your liability insurance. I imagine it covers mistakes. But fraud is another matter entirely. After he left, Evelyn and I sat in silence for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and desperate. Rebecca, please, you don't understand the position we're in. The debt, the expenses. I understand perfectly. You bit off more than you could chew, and instead of facing the consequences like adults, you decided to solve your problems by robbing your husband's mother. It wasn't supposed to be robbery. It was supposed to be redistribution. You don't need all that money at your age, and we have decades ahead of us, children to raise. There it is again, my age as justification for your greed. Evelyn was crying now, tears streaming down her face. What do you want from us? Rebecca, what will it take for you to just let this go? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden I'd helped plant, the fence I'd helped repair, the life I'd helped them build. I want my $15,000 back, with interest. I want my name removed from this deed, and I want you both to sign a document acknowledging that you attempted to defraud me. We can't pay you back $15,000. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'll need to figure it out. Sell some of that new furniture you bought with my mortgage payments. Cancel your Tuscany vacation. Get a second job. And if we refuse, I turned back to face her, and I let her see exactly how much steel was underneath my pleasant grandmother exterior. Then I file charges, and we let a jury decide whether your financial desperation justifies elder abuse. That evening, Liam finally came home. I heard him in the driveway, heard Evelyn rushing to meet him at the door, heard the urgent whispered conversation that followed. 20 minutes later, he knocked on the door of the spare bedroom where I was packing my belongings. Mom, can we talk? I looked up from folding the sweater I'd bought with my first Social Security check. Of course, sweetheart. Come in. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like a man who just discovered his whole life was built on quicksand, which, in a way, it was. Evelyn told me about today, about the accusations you're making. They're not accusations, Liam. They're facts backed up by documentation. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. Mom, I need you to understand something. Evelyn and we never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. The question is whether you meant to or whether you just didn't care enough to think about the consequences. That's not fair. Isn't it? You let your wife convince you that I was becoming incompetent without bothering to talk to my doctor. You planned to put me in assisted living without visiting the facility or asking what I wanted. You were going to strip me of my property rights without even having the courage to be present for the conversation. Liam flinched. The gym thing. I was scared. Mom, I didn't know how to handle it. So you let Evelyn handle it instead. She said she'd take care of everything. Make it easy for you. Make it easy for me to be robbed. You mean, it wasn't robbery? God, Mom, you make it sound like we're criminals. I stopped packing and looked at my son. Really looked at him. At 42, he still had the same face he'd had at 12 when he'd broken Mrs. Patterson's window with a baseball and tried to convince me it had been an accident. What would you call it? Liam taking someone's money under false pretenses, attempting to have them declared incompetent so you can control their assets, systematically undermining their confidence and independence. We were trying to protect you. From what? From living my own life with my own money in my own home. From being alone and vulnerable. From falling and lying there for hours with no one to help. From being taken advantage of by people who don't love you. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The only people who've tried to take advantage of me, Liam, are you and your wife? He put his head in his hands. I don't know how this got so messed up. It got messed up because you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a problem to be solved. That's not true. When was the last time you asked me what I wanted? Liam, not what Evelyn thought I needed, not what you decided was best for me, but what I actually wanted for my own life. He was quiet for a long time. I don't remember. Neither do I. And that's the real tragedy here, isn't it? Somewhere along the way, my feelings and preferences became irrelevant to decisions about my life. Mom, what do you want us to do? Evelyn says you want us to pay back the down payment money, but we can't. It's gone. It's tied up in the house. Then sell the house. We can't sell the house. Evelyn's pregnant. We need the space. The neighborhood. You need a lot of things, Liam. But none of them are more important than my right to be treated with honesty and respect. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. There has to be another way. Some compromise we can work out. The compromise was supposed to be the original loan agreement. I give you money to help with the down payment. You pay me back over 2 years. But Evelyn decided that wasn't good enough. She wanted it all. My money, my property rights, and my independence. She's scared. Mom, we both are. The baby, the expenses, the pressure. And you thought the solution was to make your fear and pressure my problem to solve. Liam was crying now, tears streaming down his face like he was 12 years old again. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this. I sat down beside him on the bed and took his hand the way I had 1,000 times when he was growing up, and the world seemed too big and scary. Liam, I love you more than life itself. I always have. And I always will. But love doesn't mean letting people hurt you without consequences. What are you going to do? I'm going to move out tomorrow. I've already arranged a rental apartment across town. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I can't live with people who see me as a burden and a bank account. And the money. I squeezed his hand gently. You have 30 days to come up with a repayment plan. If you can't, we'll let the court sort it out. He nodded miserably. I understand. I hope you do, sweetheart, because this isn't just about money. This is about whether you're going to be the kind of man who stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult. After Liam left, I finished packing my few belongings. Tomorrow, I'd start over again at 68 years old. It wasn't the retirement I'd planned, but it was better than the alternative. And Evelyn still didn't know about the phone call I'd made to her mother that afternoon. If you're still with me, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Part 2 will reveal exactly how I turned the tables on Evelyn and what happened when her mother got involved. It's a twist you won't want to miss. 3 weeks later, I was settled into my new apartment. A cozy one-bedroom place with a view of the park, and neighbors who remembered what it meant to look out for each other. The building was full of active seniors who played cards, organized potluck dinners, and treated each other with the respect that Evelyn had found so difficult to manage. I'd heard nothing from Liam or Evelyn since moving out. No phone calls, no texts, no attempts to negotiate or apologize. The silence spoke volumes about their priorities. But I wasn't alone in my new life. Rebecca, dear, you have a visitor, called Mrs. Jenkins from the lobby intercom. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I looked through the peephole, I saw a woman about my age holding a plate covered with aluminum foil. Mrs. Harris, I'm Patricia Carter, Evelyn's mother. I opened the door, curious about what Evelyn's mother could possibly want with me. Patricia Carter was elegant in the way that comes from decades of good breeding and careful attention to appearance. But her eyes were tired, and there was something apologetic in her posture. Please come in, I said. Can I offer you some tea? That would be lovely. Thank you. We sat in my small living room, the afternoon light streaming through windows that overlooked a garden I was already planning to help tend come spring. Mrs. Harris, Patricia began. Please call me Rebecca. Rebecca, I owe you an apology. And what could you possibly need to apologize for not raising my daughter better than this? I set down my teacup, surprised by her directness. When you called me 3 weeks ago and told me what Evelyn had done, my first instinct was to defend her. No mother wants to believe their child is capable of such cruelty. She sighed deeply. But I've known Evelyn for 34 years, and if I'm honest, I've seen this pattern before. Patricia's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her tea. When Evelyn was in college, there was an incident with her roommate's credit cards. Evelyn claimed it was a misunderstanding, that she'd borrowed money and intended to pay it back. We believed her, paid for a lawyer, made it go away. My chest tightened. There were other incidents. Her first marriage ended when her husband discovered she'd been taking money from his elderly father's checking account. Again, Evelyn claimed it was temporary, that she was helping the old man manage his finances, but the bank records told a different story. I stared at Patricia, pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. Liam doesn't know about this. Does he? Evelyn made me promise never to tell anyone. She said she'd learned her lesson, that she was different now. And now I don't believe her anymore. Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. This is $15,000 to Rebecca, cash. I stared at the envelope like it was a snake. I can't take your money, Patricia. Yes, you can. And you will, because my daughter stole from you. And as her mother, I'm responsible for making it right. That's not how responsibility works. In my family, it is. My husband built a successful business by believing that integrity isn't negotiable. I failed to teach that lesson to Evelyn, but I won't compound that failure by letting her victims suffer for my mistakes. I felt tears sting my eyes. This is incredibly generous. But what about Liam? What about their house? Liam will figure it out. He's a good man who made bad choices because he trusted the wrong person. The house situation will resolve itself once Evelyn realizes the money isn't coming from you. What do you mean? Patricia's smile was sad but knowing. Evelyn married Liam because she thought he came from money. Your nice clothes. Your generous gifts. Your willingness to help with the down payment. She assumed you were wealthy. I'm comfortable, but hardly wealthy. Exactly. And once Evelyn realizes that there's no inheritance coming, that you're not the golden goose she thought you were, she'll move on to easier targets. The casual way Patricia said this made my blood run cold. You think she'll leave Liam? I think Evelyn follows opportunity. If Liam can't provide the lifestyle she wants, she'll find someone who can. I thought about the baby Evelyn was carrying, about Liam's broken heart when his marriage fell apart, about the grandchild I might never know. The baby will be better off without a mother who sees people as resources to be exploited. Trust me, Rebecca, some people can change, but Evelyn isn't one of them. After Patricia left, I sat with the envelope of money on my kitchen table, feeling like I was holding something much heavier than cash. This money represented Patricia's attempt to balance scales that Evelyn had tipped toward cruelty and greed. But it also represented something else, the knowledge that Liam was married to a woman who had made a career out of financial exploitation. And that made my next decision much easier. I picked up the phone and dialed Detective Rodriguez. Detective, it's Rebecca Harris. I've reconsidered your suggestion about filing formal charges against my daughter-in-law. The knock on Liam's door came at 7:00 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, just as Evelyn was getting ready for her prenatal appointment. I know this because Detective Rodriguez called me afterward to let me know how it went. Mrs. Evelyn Harris, you're under arrest for elder financial abuse, fraud, and attempted coercion. You have the right to remain silent. Apparently, Evelyn's first words were, "This is Rebecca's fault, isn't it?" Even facing arrest, she couldn't take responsibility for her own choices. Liam called me that afternoon, his voice hollow with shock and betrayal. "Mom, I need to understand what's happening. Evelyn says you had her arrested out of spite." "Liam, your wife tried to steal my life savings and have me declared incompetent so she could control my assets. The arrest isn't spite, it's justice." "But she's pregnant, Mom. She's carrying my child." "I know, sweetheart, and I'm sorry this is happening now. But Evelyn made her choices. The lawyer says she could go to prison. That's possible. Elder abuse is a felony. How can you be so calm about destroying our family?" The accusations stung, but I'd been expecting it. "Liam, I didn't destroy your family. Evelyn did that when she decided to commit crimes against me. She says she never meant to hurt you, that it was all just a misunderstanding about the loan agreement? What about the emails planning to handle the Rebecca situation? What about the systematic campaign to make me seem incompetent? What about threatening to claim I had a drug problem if I didn't cooperate? Silence on the other end of the line. Liam, your wife is a predator. She's done this before to other elderly people. I'm not her first victim. What do you mean? I mean, you need to ask yourself some hard questions about the woman you married and whether you ever really knew her at all. That evening, Patricia Carter called me. Rebecca, I wanted to thank you for pressing charges. I know it wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I couldn't let her do this to someone else's family. The police contacted me today. They're looking into Evelyn's past relationships, other potential victims. It seems your case has opened up a much larger investigation. My stomach dropped. How much larger? Evelyn's first husband wasn't the only one. There were at least 3 elderly men she dated briefly, all of whom experienced mysterious financial problems during their relationships with her. And there was an incident at the assisted living facility where she worked before meeting Liam. I felt sick. She worked at an assisted living facility. For 6 months, she was fired for suspected theft from residents' accounts, but charges were never filed due to lack of evidence. The full scope of Evelyn's predatory behavior was becoming clear. She hadn't targeted me because I was Liam's mother. She'd targeted me because I was a vulnerable elderly woman with resources she wanted to control. Patricia, does Liam know about any of this? I told him this afternoon. He's processing. My 42-year-old son was processing the fact that he'd married a woman who made a living exploiting elderly people. How is he handling it? About as well as you'd expect. He's devastated, angry, and blaming everyone except Evelyn. But the evidence is overwhelming. Rebecca, even Liam can't deny it forever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the baby Evelyn was carrying, about the innocent life that would be born into this chaos. I thought about Liam, whose world was crashing down around him. I thought about all the other victims Evelyn had left in her wake. But mostly, I thought about the choice I'd faced 3 weeks ago. Let Evelyn get away with her crimes or fight back and face the consequences. I'd chosen to fight. And while that choice would have ripple effects for years to come, it was the right choice. Because sometimes, when you're dealing with people who see kindness as weakness, the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries with consequences attached. My phone rang at midnight, Liam's name on the caller ID. Mom, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm sorry. His voice was broken, raw with pain and regret. I'm so sorry for everything, for not believing you, for not protecting you, for choosing her over you. Liam, you don't have to choose between us. You just have to choose between right and wrong. I think I might lose everything. Mom, the house, my marriage, my family. Maybe. But you'll still have the most important thing. What's that? Your integrity, and the chance to be the kind of man your father would be proud of. He cried then, deep sobs that came from somewhere primal and broken, and I cried with him, for the innocence we'd both lost, for the family we thought we were building, for the grandchild who would grow up in the shadow of this betrayal. But beneath the grief, there was something else. Relief. Because for the first time in months, my son was seeing clearly. And that meant there was still hope for us both. The weeks that followed Evelyn's arrest were a blur of legal proceedings, uncomfortable conversations, and slow healing. I learned more about my daughter-in-law's past than I ever wanted to know. Detective Rodriguez called me regularly with updates. We found 4 more victims, Mrs. Harris, all elderly, all with similar stories. Evelyn gained their trust, isolated them from family, then systematically took control of their finances. How did she get away with it for so long? Shame, mostly. People don't want to admit they've been taken advantage of, especially by someone they trusted. And ageism plays a role. When an older person accuses a younger caregiver of manipulation, people often assume the senior is confused or paranoid. Like Evelyn tried to make Liam believe about me. Exactly. It's a textbook elder abuse tactic. The evidence against Evelyn mounted quickly. Bank records showed irregular transactions from previous victims' accounts. Former colleagues from the assisted living facility came forward with stories of Evelyn's inappropriate interest in wealthy residents. Her first husband provided a damning statement about finding cash and jewelry from his father hidden in Evelyn's closet. Through it all, Evelyn maintained her innocence. She claimed she was being persecuted, that everyone was misunderstanding her kind intentions, that I was vindictively destroying her life out of jealousy. Liam was caught in the middle, trying to reconcile the woman he thought he'd married with the predator revealed in police reports and witness statements. Some days he believed the evidence. Other days he'd call me, desperate to find another explanation. Maybe she has a mental illness, Mom. Maybe she needs help, not punishment. That's possible, Liam, but mental illness doesn't excuse her actions. It might explain them, but it doesn't erase the harm she's caused. I don't know what to do about the baby. I can't raise a child alone. You won't be alone. You have me. And apparently, you have Patricia too. Patricia Carter had become an unexpected ally in this mess. She visited Evelyn in jail, but refused to bail her out. Consequences are the only language Evelyn understands, she told me over coffee one afternoon. I failed her by shielding her from them for too long. Meanwhile, my little apartment had become a sanctuary. I'd joined a book club with other residents, started volunteering at the local library, and even taken up watercolor painting, something I'd always wanted to try but never found the time for. Life was settling into a new rhythm when Evelyn's lawyer contacted me. Mrs. Harris, my client would like to speak with you. She believes there's a misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a simple conversation. I'm not interested in being manipulated again. Mr. Daniels, I understand your concern, but this meeting would be fully supervised. You could bring your own lawyer if you wish. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep Evelyn firmly in my past, but another part, the part that had raised a son to face his problems head-on, knew that avoidance solved nothing. I'll meet with her, but I'm bringing Detective Rodriguez. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday at the county jail. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing clothes that made me feel strong and confident. No fragile old lady for Evelyn to manipulate this time. Detective Rodriguez met me in the parking lot. You don't have to do this, Mrs. Harris. The case against your daughter-in-law is solid. I know, but I need to look her in the eye one more time, for my own peace of mind. The visitor's room was stark and impersonal, with bolted-down furniture and cameras in every corner. Evelyn was already seated when we entered, her hands resting on the table. She looked different, the designer clothes replaced by a standard-issue jumpsuit, her perfect makeup gone, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. For the first time, I saw Evelyn without her carefully constructed facade, and it was jarring. She looked younger, more vulnerable, and undeniably pregnant. Rebecca, thank you for coming. Her voice was soft, almost meek, another performance. What do you want, Evelyn? She glanced at Detective Rodriguez, then back to me. I wanted to apologize. What I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. The words sounded rehearsed, empty. I waited for more. My lawyer says I'm looking at serious prison time. Years. I could have my baby in jail. Rebecca. And there it was, the real reason for this meeting. Are you asking me to drop the charges? I'm asking for mercy, for my child's sake. Your grandchild? I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse. I saw none. Evelyn, do you understand what you did wrong? She blinked, clearly not expecting that question. I took advantage of your generosity. I tried to take control of your assets. I manipulated Liam, and how many others before me? Her eyes flashed with something dark before she composed herself. I've made mistakes in the past. I'm not perfect. Not mistakes. Is that what you call systematically targeting vulnerable elderly people and stealing their life savings? A mistake. I never meant, don't. My voice was sharp. Don't sit there and tell me you never meant to hurt anyone. You knew exactly what you were doing. You've been doing it for years. Evelyn's mask slipped, just for a moment. You have no idea what it's like, Rebecca, growing up with nothing, watching other people take everything for granted. I had to fight for every opportunity, every advantage. So that gives you the right to steal from others. I never saw it as stealing, just redistributing resources to someone who could use them better. The cold calculation in her voice chilled me. And who decides what better means you? Look at you, she continued, gesturing around the room. You're old. You don't need a big house or nice things anymore. Your life is mostly over. While mine is just beginning, I have a future to secure, a child to raise. Detective Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably beside me, but I held up a hand to stop her from intervening. I wanted to hear this. So in your mind, my age makes me less deserving, less human, Evelyn shrugged. It's just practical. Why should resources sit unused when they could be helping a young family? It's not personal. It felt very personal when you were building a case to have me declared incompetent. That was Liam's idea. The lie was so blatant it almost made me laugh. No, it wasn't. Liam doesn't have the spine or the strategic thinking for something that elaborate. That was all you... Evelyn, her eyes narrowed. Fine, believe what you want, but think about your grandchild, Rebecca. Are you really willing to let your grandchild grow up without a mother just because you're bitter about some money and hurt feelings? This isn't about money or feelings. This is about justice, not just for me, but for all the people you've hurt. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You know what will happen if I go to prison, don't you? Liam won't be able to handle a baby alone. He can barely take care of himself. The child will end up in foster care, or worse. Is that what you want? That's not what will happen, and you know it. Liam has support me. Your mother, friends. Your child will be loved and cared for, with or without you. So that's your plan. Take my baby and raise it yourself. Play the devoted grandmother while I rot in jail. No, Evelyn. My plan is to let justice run its course. What happens after that is up to the courts, up to Liam, and ultimately, up to you. If you genuinely want to be part of your child's life, you'll need to make amends, not just to me, but to everyone you've hurt. She stared at me for a long moment, then sat back, her hand moving protectively over her belly. I want a deal. I'm not the district attorney, Evelyn. I don't make deals. But they'll listen to you. If you tell them you don't want me to serve time, why would I do that? Because deep down, you're soft, Rebecca. You care about family more than justice. You wouldn't want to explain to your grandchild someday why you sent their mother to prison. It was a desperate play, but also a revealing one. Even now, Evelyn saw my capacity for compassion as a weakness to exploit. You're right about one thing. Evelyn, I do care about family. That's why I can't let you continue to harm people without consequences. That's not the example I want to set for my grandchild. I stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. I wish things had been different. I wish you had been the person Liam thought you were. But wishing doesn't change reality. Evelyn's composure cracked completely then. You'll regret this, Rebecca. When your precious grandchild grows up hating you for what you did to their mother, you'll regret it. Maybe. But I'd regret allowing you to hurt more people, even more. As Detective Rodriguez and I turned to leave, Evelyn called after me, her voice sharp with desperation. I know things about Liam that would break your heart, things he's never told you. I paused at the door but didn't turn around. Goodbye, Evelyn. I hope you find peace someday. Outside in the parking lot, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on a bench to steady myself. Are you all right, Mrs. Harris? Detective Rodriguez asked gently. Not really, but I will be. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing in there. She was trying to manipulate you again. I know, some people never change. What will you do now? I looked up at the clear blue sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. I'm going to focus on helping my son through this mess and preparing for my grandchild. The rest is in the hands of the justice system. On the drive home, I thought about what Evelyn had said about Liam, about the things that would break my heart. It was almost certainly another manipulation tactic, but it had found its mark nonetheless. Had Liam been keeping secrets from me? And if so, did they matter now? In the face of everything else we were dealing with, I decided that whatever Liam's secrets might be, they were his to share or keep. My job wasn't to pry them out of him, but to create a safe space where truth could exist without fear of judgment. When I got home, there was a message waiting on my answering machine. "Mom, it's me. I need to talk to you. About Evelyn. About the baby. About everything. Can I come over tonight?" I called him back immediately. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll make dinner." "Thanks, Mom. And there's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." My heart tightened, Evelyn's words echoing in my mind. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." I hope so, because I don't think I can handle losing you too. After I hung up, I sat on my couch, watching the sun set over the park. Whatever confession Liam was preparing to make, whatever challenge was coming next, I knew we would face it head on. Because that's what family does, the real kind of family, not the counterfeit version Evelyn had tried to create. As I got up to start preparing dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "The baby is a girl. Evelyn just found out. Thought you should know. A girl, my granddaughter. Despite everything, a smile spread across my face. A new life, a new beginning, a chance to break the cycle of manipulation and deceit that Evelyn had perpetuated for so long." I texted back a simple thank you and headed to the kitchen, my mind already filling with plans for a nursery in my spare room, for tiny pink clothes and bedtime stories. Whatever happened with Evelyn, whatever Liam needed to tell me tonight, this child would be loved. Of that, I was absolutely certain. Liam arrived at 7, looking exhausted but more clear-eyed than he had in months. He carried a manila envelope tucked under one arm and a bouquet of daisies, my favorite, in his hand. "These are for you," he said, handing me the flowers. Small token of, well, everything. "They're beautiful. Thank you." I put them in water while Liam settled at my small dining table. "I made lasagna, your favorite." "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble. It's what mothers do." We ate quietly at first, the weight of everything that had happened, everything still to come hanging between us. Finally, Liam set down his fork and took a deep breath. "I saw Evelyn today." "How did that go?" "Not great. She wanted me to convince you to drop the charges. When I told her I wouldn't do that, she said some things. About me. About everyone. About how we're all against her. How no one understands what she's been through." He rubbed his face wearily. "She's still not taking responsibility for anything she did. I'm not surprised. People like Evelyn rarely do. That's the thing. Mom, I keep trying to understand how I missed it, how I could have lived with her, loved her, planned a future with her, and never seen who she really was. Love can be blinding, sweetheart. It's more than that. I think I saw what I wanted to see. Evelyn was everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, ambitious, exciting. She made me feel important, special, like I was rescuing her from a hard life. And that felt good. Yeah, it did." He looked ashamed. "Pretty pathetic. Huh. A 42-year-old man so desperate to feel like a hero that he ignores every red flag. You're being too hard on yourself. Evelyn is very skilled at what she does. She's had years of practice identifying vulnerabilities and exploiting them." Liam nodded slowly. "Her mother told me about the others, about her pattern. It's so obvious in hindsight. Hindsight always is." He reached for the envelope he'd brought. "There's something I need to show you, something I should have shown you months ago." Inside the envelope was a thick document, the header reading, "Last Will and Testament of Rebecca Lynn Harris." "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Evelyn had it in her desk drawer. I found it after she was arrested. It's not the original, just a copy. But..." I flipped through the pages, my shock growing with each paragraph. According to this document, I had left everything to Liam and Evelyn as joint beneficiaries, with specific provisions granting them immediate power of attorney if I showed any signs of cognitive decline or inability to manage my affairs independently. The signature at the bottom looked remarkably like mine, but I had never seen this document before, let alone signed it. "This is a forgery," I said finally. "I know." Liam's voice broke. I think she was planning to use it if you wouldn't sign the papers for Oakwood Manor. Another way to gain control of your assets. Did you know about this? He couldn't meet my eyes. Not exactly, but a few months ago, Evelyn mentioned that you had updated your will to include her. I thought it was odd that you hadn't mentioned it to me, but she said you wanted it to be a surprise, a gesture of acceptance. And you believed her. I wanted to. It made everything easier, her sudden interest in your finances, her concerns about your living situation. If I believed you had already decided to leave everything to us, then helping manage your affairs just seemed like practical foresight. My hands were shaking as I set the document down. This is what you wanted to tell me tonight about the forged will. Partly. But there's more. Liam took another deep breath. When Evelyn first suggested moving you in with us, I wasn't entirely on board. I knew you valued your independence. But then she showed me something that changed my mind. What was that? Bank statements from your account, showing unusual transactions, online purchases you wouldn't normally make, withdrawals from ATMs in parts of town you never visit. My blood ran cold. She had access to my bank accounts. She claimed you had given her online access to help manage your bills. I believed her because you had mentioned having trouble with the bank's new app. I had mentioned that, in passing, during a dinner months earlier. I'd made a joke about technology leaving seniors behind. I never imagined Evelyn would use that casual comment to construct such an elaborate deception. I never gave her access to my accounts, Liam. I know that now. The detective showed me the real statements. The ones Evelyn showed me were manipulated. She was building a case for your financial incompetence long before she ever suggested Oakwood Manor. The extent of Evelyn's planning was staggering. How did she get my bank information in the first place? Liam looked even more uncomfortable. She said she found a statement in your apartment when she was helping you clean. But now I think she may have stolen your mail. I remembered the missing bank statement from January, how I'd called the bank to request a new one, assuming it had been lost in transit. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. There's more, Liam continued, his voice barely audible now. About the loan agreement, the $15,000 you gave us for the down payment. I knew it was a loan. I signed the agreement. But Evelyn convinced me that you had later decided to make it a gift instead. And you believed that too. She showed me an email, supposedly from you, saying you had reconsidered and wanted to gift us the money as an early inheritance. It looked real. Mom. It had your email address, your signature line. Everything. But you never confirmed this with me directly. No, I should have. But it was easier not to. We were struggling with the mortgage payments, and the idea that we wouldn't have to repay that money was such a relief that I chose to believe it. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of so many deceptions, so many missed opportunities to prevent this disaster. I'm not telling you all this to make excuses, Liam said finally. There aren't any excuses for what I let happen. I'm telling you because you deserve the truth. All of it. No matter how bad it makes me look. I reached across the table and took his hand. Thank you for being honest with me now. There's one more thing. The hardest thing. His voice cracked. I knew about the prescription bottle in your purse, the one with Sarah Washington's name on it. My heart sank. You knew. Evelyn showed it to me weeks before the confrontation in the kitchen. She said she'd found it while looking for aspirin in your purse. She was concerned, said it might indicate confusion or something more serious. And instead of asking me about it, you would assumed I was abusing prescription drugs. I didn't know what to think. I was scared. Mom, scared that maybe you were declining and I was in denial. Scared that I might have to face losing you. Not to death, but to dementia or something equally cruel. So you let Evelyn handle it. Yes, the shame in his voice was palpable. I let her handle everything because I was too weak, too cowardly to face any of it myself. I sat back in my chair, trying to process the full scope of Evelyn's manipulation and Liam's complicity, however unwitting. It was almost too much to bear. I would understand if you can't forgive me, Liam said quietly. I'm not sure I can forgive myself. Forgiveness takes time, I replied. choosing my words carefully. But understanding can start now. You were manipulated by someone very skilled at manipulation. That doesn't excuse your choices, but it does explain them. What happens now with Evelyn's case, with the baby, with us? The case will proceed. Justice needs to be served. Not just for me, but for all of Evelyn's victims. And the baby. Your daughter will need her father more than ever. You'll need to step up. Liam, no more delegating the hard stuff. No more avoiding difficult conversations. I know. I'm trying to be stronger. To be the kind of father she deserves. As for us, I squeezed his hand. We rebuild, day by day, conversation by conversation. We learn to trust each other again. Liam's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve your kindness. This isn't kindness. Liam, it's family. Real family. Not the toxic version Evelyn tried to create. Real family means holding each other accountable, but also holding space for growth and redemption. We talked late into the night, untangling the web of lies Evelyn had spun around us both. With each revelation, each painful truth acknowledged, I felt a little lighter, a little more hopeful about the future. When Liam finally left, promising to return the next day with more documents the detective had requested, I stood at my window watching him walk to his car. He moved differently now, his shoulders straighter, his steps more purposeful. The weight of deceit had been lifted, replaced by the cleaner, sharper burden of truth and responsibility. I thought about the forged will, the doctored bank statements, the elaborate fiction Evelyn had constructed to justify her theft. How long had she been planning this? How many times had she done something similar before? More importantly, how would we protect Liam's daughter from inheriting her mother's manipulative tendencies, nature or nurture, which would prove stronger in the end? As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Jenkins, the notary who had almost become an unwitting accomplice to Evelyn's scheme. Mrs. Harris, I've been subpoenaed to testify in your daughter-in-law's case. I want you to know I'm going to tell the complete truth about what happened that day. I should have recognized the signs of elder abuse, and I'm sorry I didn't. If there's anything else I can do to make amends, please let me know. I texted back a simple thank you and set my phone aside. One by one, the pieces were falling into place. Justice was coming, slowly but surely. As I drifted off to sleep, I found myself thinking not about Evelyn or the case or even Liam, but about my unborn granddaughter. What would we name her? What kind of world would she grow up in? What stories would we tell her about her mother? Those were questions for another day. For now, it was enough to know that whatever happened next, we would face it together older, wiser, and infinitely more cautious about who we allowed into our circle of trust. The long game wasn't over yet, but for the first time in months, I felt like I might actually win. If you're still with me, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. In part 3, I'll share what happened during Evelyn's trial, how my granddaughter came into the world, and the surprising way this story ultimately ends. You won't want to miss it. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse watching Evelyn plead guilty to 3 counts of elder financial abuse. She looked different, smaller somehow, without the designer clothes and professional makeup that had been part of her costume. Liam sat 2 rows behind me with Patricia Carter. He'd filed for divorce 3 weeks after Evelyn's arrest, when the full scope of her criminal history became public. The baby, a little girl, had been born healthy despite the stress of her mother's legal troubles. Your Honor, Evelyn's lawyer said, my client deeply regrets her actions and asks the court's mercy in consideration of her circumstances as a new mother. Judge Martinez looked unimpressed. Mrs. Harris, you systematically targeted vulnerable elderly individuals for financial exploitation. Your actions weren't momentary lapses in judgment. They were part of a calculated pattern of abuse spanning several years. Evelyn started crying, the same manipulative tears she'd used on Liam and me for months. Mrs. Harris, you've pleaded guilty to defrauding Mrs. Rebecca Harris of $15,000 attempting to coerce her into signing away property rights and making false statements about her mental capacity. The court sentences you to 18 months in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation and full restitution to the victim. 18 months. It seemed like such a short time for the damage she'd caused, but it was more than I'd expected. After the sentencing, Liam and I walked outside together into the spring sunshine. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Tired," I admitted, "but also free. I keep thinking about the baby, about Emma growing up knowing her mother is in prison. Emma, they'd named her Emma Dorothy Harris. Liam's attempt to honor me despite everything that had happened. Emma will be better off knowing the truth than living with lies," I said. "And she'll have you and Patricia and maybe even me, if you'll let me." Liam stopped walking and turned to face me. "Mom, I need you to know something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "When Evelyn was trying to convince me you were incompetent, there was a part of me that wanted to believe her. The honesty hurt, but I appreciated it. Because it would have been easier than facing the truth about my marriage, about my judgment, about the person I'd chosen to build a life with. I let her make me see you as a burden instead of a blessing. I let her convince me that loving you was somehow betraying her. I chose comfort over courage, and it nearly cost me everything that actually matters." I took his hand, the same hand I'd held when he was learning to cross the street, when he'd graduated from college, when he'd called to tell me he was getting married. "We all make mistakes, sweetheart. The question is what we do with the lessons they teach us. What I learned is that my mother is the strongest, smartest, most resilient woman I've ever known, and I'm sorry it took me this long to remember that." 3 weeks later, Liam brought Emma to visit me in my apartment. She was beautiful dark hair like her father, Patricia's elegant nose, and eyes that seemed to see everything. "She's perfect," I whispered, holding my granddaughter for the first time. "Mom," Liam said quietly, "I've been thinking about the house. Oh, I can't afford the mortgage payments without Evelyn's income, and honestly, I don't want to live there anymore. Too many bad memories." I looked up from the baby's face. "What will you do?" "I want to sell it and give you half the proceeds. It's not exactly what you're owed, but it's a start." "Liam, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Mom, you taught me that family means taking care of each other. For a while there. I forgot what that meant." 6 months after that, Liam and Emma moved into a small house 3 blocks from my apartment. Liam took a second job to make ends meet, but he also started coming over for dinner twice a week. We'd sit on my tiny balcony while Emma played on a blanket, and we'd talk about everything except Evelyn. Patricia Carter became an unexpected friend, stopping by regularly to help with Emma and share stories about the granddaughter she'd never expected to have such a relationship with. "You know," she said one afternoon as we watched Emma take her first steps across my living room, "I think this little one is going to be just fine. Even with everything that's happened, she'll grow up knowing that actions have consequences, that integrity matters, and that the women in her family don't back down from bullies." I smiled, thinking about the letter I'd written to Emma, one she wouldn't read until she was old enough to understand. In it, I told her the whole story about her mother's choices, about the importance of standing up for yourself, about the difference between love and manipulation. But mostly, I told her about the power that comes from refusing to be anyone's victim, no matter how much they might try to convince you that you're too old, too weak, or too inconvenient to matter. Patricia's involvement in Emma's life had been unexpected, but valuable. She provided a link to Evelyn's side of the family without the toxicity that Evelyn herself would have brought. "I've been thinking," Patricia said one day as we watched Emma playing in the park, "about nature versus nurture, about whether Emma might inherit any of Evelyn's tendencies. It was a fear I'd had myself, one I'd never voiced aloud. I think we all have the capacity for selfishness, for manipulation." I replied carefully. "The difference is in how we're taught to manage those impulses." Patricia nodded thoughtfully. "My husband and I, we gave Evelyn everything the best schools, beautiful clothes, exotic vacations. We thought we were showing her love. But looking back, I wonder if what we really taught her was entitlement. You can't blame yourself for her choices." "Patricia, can't I?" "When Evelyn was 7, she stole a classmate's bracelet, When confronted, she lied about it, quite convincingly. Instead of making her face consequences, we paid for a replacement and moved her to a different school. It was the first of many times we chose to shield her rather than teach her. I thought about my own parenting, about the times I'd made excuses for Liam's behavior, about my tendency to step in and fix problems rather than let him face the natural consequences of his actions. I think most parents struggle with that balance, I said. We want to protect our children from pain, but sometimes pain is the most effective teacher. With Emma, we have a second chance, Patricia said, watching her granddaughter chase a butterfly. A chance to get it right. We do, and we will. The first year of Emma's life passed in a blur of first's first smile, first word, first tooth, first steps. With each milestone, the shadow of Evelyn's absence grew a little less pronounced. Liam proved to be a more capable father than either of us had expected, juggling work and childcare with a newfound determination I'd never seen in him before. Fatherhood suits you, I told him one evening as he expertly changed Emma's diaper while simultaneously heating her bottle. I never thought it would, he admitted. When Evelyn first told me she was pregnant, I was terrified. I didn't think I had it in me to be responsible for another person. And now I can't imagine my life any other way. Emma's given me purpose, direction, something beyond myself to care about. It was the same transformation I'd experienced when Liam was born. That shift from self-centered existence to a life oriented around someone else's needs and happiness. It had taken Liam longer to get there, but the change, now that it had come, was profound. On Emma's first birthday, we had a small celebration in my apartment, just Liam, Patricia, myself, and a few close friends. As Emma gleefully smashed her cake with pudgy hands, oblivious to the significance of the day, I found myself thinking about how much had changed in a year. Evelyn was still in prison, with another 6 months to serve. She'd made no attempt to contact Liam or inquire about Emma, which was both a relief and a sadness. What kind of mother never asked about her child after the party? While Liam was putting Emma down for a nap in the portable crib we kept at my place, Patricia handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "A letter from Evelyn. It came last week." My heart raced. "Have you read it?" "Yes. I thought about throwing it away, but I decided that wasn't my choice to make." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. The letter inside was short, written on prison stationery in Evelyn's neat, controlled handwriting. Rebecca. By now you probably think you've won. The perfect grandmother, the moral compass, the victim who fought back. I'm sure you're enjoying playing house with my daughter, teaching her to hate me, turning Liam against me. But here's what you don't know. The $15,000 wasn't the only money I took from you. For months, I was siphoning small amounts from your checking account, $50 here, $100 there. You never noticed because you trust people too easily. That money is gone, hidden where you'll never find it. I also made copies of all your personal documents, Social Security card, birth certificate, everything. I've memorized your Social Security number, your mother's maiden name, all your security questions. When I get out, who knows what I might do with that information? You think 18 months is a long time? It's nothing. I'll be out before Emma's second birthday, and then we'll see who really wins. Remember, I'm still her mother. I have rights, and I have a very long memory. Sleep well, Evelyn. I set the letter down, my hands shaking. I'm sorry, Patricia said softly. I should have prepared you better for what it said. No, I needed to see this, to remember what we're dealing with. Liam came back into the room, his face brightening when he saw us sitting together. Emma's out like a light. What did I miss? I quickly folded the letter and tucked it away. Nothing important, just grandmother talk. Later, after everyone had left and I was alone in my apartment, I took out Evelyn's letter again. The threats were clear, the malice unmistakable. She was trying to frighten me, to regain some measure of control even from behind bars, instead of fear, though what I felt was a strange sense of clarity. The Evelyn who had written this letter was showing her true face. No pretense, no manipulation. Just pure, undisguised hostility. In a way, it was almost refreshing. The enemy I could see was far less dangerous than the one hiding behind a smile. The next morning, I called Detective Rodriguez. I received a threatening letter from Evelyn Carter. I explained, detailing the contents. This is a clear violation of her sentencing conditions, the detective said. She's not supposed to contact any of her victims. I'll need to see the original letter. Of course. And her claims about stealing additional money from my accounts. We'll investigate, but it's likely just another attempt to upset you. Most inmates in her position are closely monitored. She wouldn't have had the opportunity to hide money anywhere. And her threats about using my personal information. That's more concerning. I'd recommend placing a freeze on your credit, changing all your passwords and security questions, and monitoring your accounts carefully. We can help you set that up. After speaking with the detective, I called Patricia. Evelyn sent me a threatening letter. I told her. I've reported it to the police. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I hoped prison might give her time to reflect, to change. Some people don't want to change, Patricia. They just want to win, no matter the cost. What will happen now? The detective says it could affect her parole, possibly extend her sentence, but eventually she'll get out, and when she does, we need to be ready. What can I do to help? Just keep being there for Emma, and for Liam. They'll need all the support they can get in the years ahead. That evening, Liam came over after work, his face grim. The detective called me about Evelyn's letter. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to burden you with it. You have enough to worry about with Emma and work. Mom, we agreed no more secrets. Evelyn thrived on dividing us, on keeping us in separate information bubbles where she could control the narrative. We can't let that pattern continue, even with her in prison. He was right, of course. Old habits die hard, and my instinct to protect Liam by shielding him from painful truths was one I needed to break. You're right, I'm sorry. Here's the letter. Liam read it, his expression darkening with each line. When he finished, he set it down carefully, as if it might contaminate him. She hasn't changed at all, has she? No, if anything, prison has made her more vindictive. What do we do when she gets out? She's still Emma's mother. She could petition for visitation, for partial custody. It was a fear that had kept me awake many nights. The detective says her conviction for elder abuse will work against her in family court, especially since you were indirectly a victim too. But yes, she could try. I won't let her near Emma. Not after this. That might not be entirely up to us. Liam, the courts tend to favor biological parents, even those with checkered pasts. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I recognized from his childhood. So we just wait hope for the best. No, we prepare. We document everything. We build a case for why Evelyn shouldn't have access to Emma. And we make sure Emma is surrounded by so much love and stability that if Evelyn does come back into her life, she'll have the emotional tools to handle it. Liam nodded slowly. You're right. We can't control what Evelyn does, but we can control how we respond. It was a lesson that had taken us both too long to learn. 2 weeks after receiving Evelyn's letter, I got a call from the prison warden. Evelyn had been caught trying to send more threatening letters, not just to me but to several of her other victims. As a result, her privileges had been revoked, and 6 months had been added to her sentence. She won't be eligible for parole until Emma is nearly 3, I told Liam when he came over that evening. It gives us more time to prepare. I've been thinking about that, he said, watching Emma play with blocks on the living room floor. About what happens when Evelyn gets out. About what kind of life I want for Emma. And I think we should move. Start fresh somewhere. Evelyn won't immediately find us. The suggestion took me by surprise. Move where? I've been offered a job in Colorado. Better pay, benefits, regular hours. It would mean a big change, but maybe that's what we need. Colorado, hundreds of miles away from the life we'd built here, from my apartment, my new friends, my routines. You don't have to come with us, Liam added quickly, seeing my expression. I know you've made a life for yourself here, but I wanted to discuss it with you before making any decisions. When would you go? The job starts in 3 months. I'd need to find a place to live, arrange childcare for Emma. It's a lot to figure out. I looked around my small apartment, at the watercolor paintings I'd created hanging on the walls, at the bookshelf filled with novels from my book club, at the balcony where I'd watched countless sunsets. I'd rebuilt my life here after Evelyn's betrayal, found independence and purpose. But what was that independence worth if it meant being separated from Liam and Emma? I'll come with you, I said quietly. Mom, are you sure it's a big change? And I know how much you value your independence. Independence is important, but family is more important. And besides, Colorado has apartments and book clubs and sunsets too. The relief on Liam's face was palpable. I was hoping you'd say that. Emma needs her grandmother. And honestly, I still need my mom. Planning the move gave us a shared purpose, a forward momentum that helped distract from the shadow of Evelyn's eventual release. We researched neighborhoods in Denver, scrolled through apartment listings, discussed school districts even though Emma was years away from kindergarten. Patricia was supportive of the decision, though clearly saddened by the prospect of having her granddaughter so far away. I understand why you need to go, she told us over dinner one evening, and I'll visit as often as I can. Maybe eventually I'll move out there too. There's nothing keeping me here except memories, most of them painful. The day before we were scheduled to leave, I received one final surprise. A certified letter arrived from Capital Legal Services, Mr. Jenkins's firm. Inside was a formal apology from the company for Mr. Jenkins' role in Evelyn's scheme, along with a check for $5,000 as a gesture of goodwill and restitution. Attached was a personal note from Mr. Jenkins himself, Mrs. Harris. Words cannot express how deeply I regret my involvement in your daughter-in-law's attempt to defraud you. While I was not aware of the full extent of her deception, I should have recognized the red flags and refused to participate. Since that day, I have dedicated myself to learning about elder abuse in all its forms. I now volunteer with the Elder Justice Coalition, helping to educate notaries and legal professionals about how to recognize and prevent financial exploitation of seniors. Your case has changed my life and my practice. Because of you, I have helped stop 3 potential cases of elder financial abuse in the past year alone. The enclosed check cannot undo the harm that was caused, but I hope it might serve as a small step toward making amends. And with deepest respect and gratitude, Robert Jenkins. I sat on my nearly empty balcony, surrounded by packed boxes, reading and rereading the letter. It was an unexpected closing of a circle, a reminder that sometimes good can come from even the darkest experiences. Our last night in town, Liam, Emma, Patricia, and I had dinner at my apartment, eating takeout off paper plates since most of my kitchen items were already packed. To new beginnings, Patricia toasted, raising her plastic cup of sparkling cider. And to the wisdom that comes from difficult endings, I added. Liam looked around the table, at his daughter happily smashing peas with her tiny fist, at his mother and his mother-in-law sharing a moment of genuine warmth, and I could see in his eyes the same thought that was in my heart. We had been through fire, but we had emerged stronger, wiser, and somehow, improbably, more whole. The next morning, as our small caravan of vehicles prepared to leave Liam and Emma in his car, me in mine, the moving truck following behind Patricia handed me one last package. What's this? I asked. A journal, for Emma. I thought you might want to continue the story you've been telling, about how her grandmother refused to be a victim, about how her father found his courage, about how sometimes the hardest battles are the ones most worth fighting. I hugged her tightly, this woman who had become family in the strangest, most unexpected way. We'll see you at Thanksgiving. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. As we drove toward the interstate, the rising sun at our backs, I thought about the journey ahead, not just the physical miles to Colorado, but the emotional terrain we would navigate in the years to come. The day would eventually arrive when Evelyn would be released, when she might try to re-enter Emma's life, when all the careful preparation and documentation would be put to the test. But that day wasn't today. Today was about forward motion, about choosing hope over fear, about recognizing that while we couldn't control what had happened to us, we absolutely could control what happened next. 6 months after we settled in Colorado, I received a letter from Detective Rodriguez. Evelyn had been involved in a prison altercation and had her sentence extended again. She wouldn't be eligible for release until Emma was nearly 5 years old. Is that good news or bad news? Liam asked when I told him. Both. I think it gives us more time to build a stable life here, to make sure Emma is secure, but it also means Evelyn isn't learning, isn't changing. She's still the same person who tried to destroy us. Maybe some people can't change, Liam said, watching Emma ride her new tricycle in the driveway of our rented house. Maybe not, but we did. You did. And that's what matters. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, I sat down with the journal Patricia had given me and began to write. Dear Emma, someday, when you're old enough to understand, I want to tell you a story about your grandmother. Not a fairy tale with princes and dragons, but a true story about growing older in a world that often dismisses the wisdom that comes with age. About fighting back when someone tries to make you feel small or insignificant. About how sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But mostly, I want to tell you about rebuilding, about how your father found his strength when it mattered most, about how families can be broken and mended and transformed, about how love, real love, isn't about possession or control, but about wanting the best for someone even when it's difficult. Your mother made choices that hurt a lot of people. Someday, she may try to explain those choices to you, to justify them, perhaps even to blame others for them. When that day comes, I hope you'll remember that you are not defined by her actions. You are your own person, with your own moral compass, your own capacity for kindness and compassion. I don't know what the future holds for any of us, but I do know this. Whatever challenges come our way, we will face them together, with honesty and courage and love, because that's what real family does. With all my heart, your Grandma Rebecca. As I closed the journal, I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, frightened, manipulated, nearly stripped of my independence and dignity. And I thought about the woman I was now, stronger, wiser, more fiercely protective of my boundaries. Evelyn had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she had given me an unexpected gift, the chance to rediscover my own power, to rebuild my relationship with my son, to be a central figure in my granddaughter's life, in trying to make me small. She had inadvertently helped me become larger than I'd ever been. And that, perhaps, was the sweetest justice of all. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Sometimes sharing our darkest moments helps light the way for others. If you've ever felt diminished because of your age, if you've ever been manipulated by someone you trusted, know that you're not alone. And more importantly, know that it's never too late to reclaim your power, to stand tall, to demand the respect you deserve. Where are you watching from? Have you ever had to stand up to someone who tried to take advantage of you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.